go, lose control, slip and slide on the dance floor. Let's go, lose control, slip and slide on the dance floor. Let's go, lose control, slip and slide on the dance floor. Let's go, lose control.
Let's do it, baby.
One, drop it.
Alright, good morning. I'm Greg.
I'm Saidarsh.
I'm Rahul. Alright, today we're going to be looking at the accident that occurred here at Coit and El Dorado. As you can see, the CVS is behind me, that occurred between Mr. Motley and Mr. Henderson on August 25th.
To determine our results, we use many physics concepts, including the conservation of momentum, impulse, forces in motion, friction, and kinematics. First, we determine the frictional force that the tires exert when the brakes are triggered after the point of the collision by using the variables given by the police. After that, we use forces in motion to determine the acceleration of the car and truck after the collision. We then used kinematics to determine the final velocities of both the truck and the car the instant after the collision occurred. After determining the friction and resulting final velocities of the vehicles, we proceeded to determine the claimed velocities right before the collision. The truck driver, Mr. Motley, who probably doesn't have a CDL Class A license, claimed that he was traveling at 6.7 meters per second. Ms. Henderson claimed she stopped, so by giving the maximum acceleration and using the claim that the car driver made, we determined the velocities of the vehicles right before the collision occurred. The initial velocity of the truck driver. After we figured out the velocities, the next step was simple. We found out the initial and final momentums in the x and y directions for the system and found that the final momentum in both directions was greater than the initial momentums. This meant that the claimed velocities, which resulted in the claimed initial momentums, were incorrect. Thus, we concluded that both of the drivers were to blame in the situation. Our next goal was to assign the percentage of blame on the drivers. Since we did not have sufficient knowledge over law, we proceeded to use scientific procedures to determine the percentage of blame. To do this, we found the percentage difference between the claimed and actual momentums of the car and the truck. We summed the numbers we got from this calculation and treated this number as the total inaccuracies given by the drivers. We divided the individual percentages of the car and the truck by the total percentages of inaccuracies to determine how wrong the drivers were in the claims relative to each other. Essentially, we assigned claim by how much each driver lied. These were the percentages we obtained by doing this procedure. We concluded that, although both drivers were at fault, Mr. Motley had most of the inaccuracies and therefore the most to blame. Although driving a vehicle that requires a Class A CDL license with a Class C isn't exactly legal. To explain with more clarity, we will show you an animation. Here in this animation, we can see both vehicles approach the intersection, and we can also see Miss Henderson not stop when reaching the intersection, which causes this accident. We can also see that Mr. Motley does not slow down, which also helps contribute to the accident.
Alrighty, I'd like to thank y'all for watching. I'd like to give credit to my group partners here. Rahul, he was the one who did the calculations and the animation. Then I'd like to give a lot of credit to Saidarsh for doing the cinematography and the video editing. Thank you!
Control. 3, 2, 1, drop it.